name's Dustin Hunt, visual artist. You can go ahead and get right into the first slide. I specialize in large-scale community-based mural projects. I facilitate and manage mural camps with middle and high school students. We incorporate movement, team building challenges, student ideas, tutorials, closing celebrations. It's 2 weeks of magic with kiddos. Next slide, please. I also do commission murals, and a lot of times these are site-specific, where I incorporate regional narratives and histories into projects. And then I have a background in art education. I was a classroom teacher for 10 years. And so I developed a paid apprenticeship for assistants to bring into projects that also act as helping hands. And I'll talk a little bit about that towards the end. Next slide, please. Today I want to talk about one project, because this is 3 years in the making. So the title is Lansing Shaped, and this is a citywide mural project in parts of the city where there's little to no public art. The map is kind of the outline of the city, so we have a mural on the north side, the west side, and the south side. And the murals are depicting one family across 3 generations, and then there's an interactive component where the subjects themselves talk about how the city has shaped them, and then there's a prompt for viewers to upload a video talking about how Lansing has shaped them. All 3 sites are former public schools that have been repurposed, which I think is just really sweet and fitting for where I come from and how I like to paint. Next slide, please. Let's see here, I have notes to keep me on track. So this is the youngest generation of the family. And I guess I'd like to say, before I even talk about painting, I consider people as like part of my medium in my practice. And for this to work, relationships are the most important thing. In terms of subjects and the creatives I tap or bring into projects, the helping hands, students, parents, families, like they're all contributors to these projects. So relationships are my biggest asset to these kinds of projects. One of these kiddos was a participant in a mural camp, and I'll say this, most kids are cool, but some kids are like beyond cool. And this, in the red t-shirt, he's like beyond cool, and he holds a conversation in a way where you just wonder, like, what are your parents like? Because you are just amazing. Next slide, please. So these are his parents, and sure enough, they're amazing. And they're also really involved in the community. They kind of approach community building in 2 different ways. And they're very active, very busy. They're all about centering people in communities and making sure that people have a voice. So really awesome folks. One other thing I want to talk about before I talk about painting is permission and this relationship that I have with subjects. So I approached them with this idea after we had met each other, gotten to know each other a little bit, because there's a big trade-off in trust, where I'm asking to paint your face 30 feet tall. And I don't know about you, but I don't want my face painted 30 feet tall. And then the painting becomes a part of the public, so it lives in public, and people get to say and think and do whatever they want in public. So there's an important relationship or a conversation that is started, but then throughout the design process, throughout the videos that we develop, there's a lot of back and forth between myself, the videographer, and the family, and just making sure that they're 100% on board with everything that's happening, and that's really important to do in this kind of work. So the next thing I'm going to show is it's a video, it's a promotional video for the project. The project isn't actually live right now, so y'all are outside of my inner circle. You're seeing some stuff that just isn't even public now. But the promo video is designed to prime folks to start to think about how the city has shaped them and how they can start to record a video when the time comes. And I selected a few folks that they're just beloved in the city and they're not really on like the main radar, but they just do really interesting, important work in the community. So if we go to the next slide, play the video.
Lansing shaped the foundation of how I've engaged with the world for my whole adult life. It's a love-hate relationship at times, but life wouldn't be the same if I had not been here. I moved to Lansing in 1992 and met my wife. We lived near downtown and scraped by while going to school and working in restaurants. There are threads that ran through my life that shaped my time here. One of them is my organizing work. I organized my first protest in '93 and confronted the KKK attempting to rally at the state capitol. To this day, I continue to fight fascism and white supremacy with people I met during that time period. I wanted to be a DJ since I was a kid. The DIY music scene here allowed me to start my own journey, learn with other DJs, and share the stage with some of my heroes. That could not have happened somewhere other than Lansing. I've come full circle now. I'm back in the kitchen. I opened a restaurant here with $1,000 and an unusual opportunity. I'm proud of the food we provide and the culture we've built. This restaurant exists because of the relationships I've made over the last 30 years. There's a sense of possibility here, that you can create what you want to see in the world. My commitment to stay and build a life in Lansing has been what has made so many things possible for me. To learn how to share your story and participate in Lansing Shape, visit muralmatics.com.
So this is the West Side mural. This is Youngest Generation, two brothers, former elementary school. This is off the main road, so this is tucked into a neighborhood, which I much prefer because you have slower traffic, you have buses slowly rolling by, traffic, people out walking about. So it's like really neighborhood centric, which I'll say a big force in the world of public art is economic development, which is not my driving force. And so when I can get away with it, I like to tuck things into neighborhoods and make them easier to consume for humans. And then each mural has a little design element kind of guiding your eyeballs to the sign that's off to the left. If we go to the next slide, when a viewer scans a QR code, they're brought into a snippet of a conversation. If you visit all three sites, you get a bigger view of the conversation amongst the family. So we'll play this one video.
I've seen the highest of the highs here, and I've seen some lows here.
You're a totally different guy when you first came. When you first came to Lansing. We both grew up in the city. We worked our way through it. I've always told you, if I can do it, you can do it.
There, I really didn't have an idea of what community was or what it could be. I think that is what I value the most, exposure, right? Being exposed to something different.
I think, to me, that it had to be the diversity, too. Growing up in Chicago, I never had someone that was white that was my friend. It's really, I don't even think about it now. But if I had been still in Chicago, I'm pretty sure I still would have had the mindset of just segregated. Coming to Lansing really showed me that we all have a lot of things in common. Lansing just transformed me from one person to another.
As a husband, a father, Lansing has really shaped how I look at community, just in so many different ways.
Thank you for checking out Lansing Shape. To participate, follow these 3 steps. First, think about how Lansing has shaped your values, your heart, or you as a person. Second, record a 30-second video sharing about how Lansing has shaped you. Make sure that your video is vertical, that there's some light, and that you're doing it in a quiet area. Upload your video below, share your name and your email address so that we can contact you. Once your video has been uploaded, give us about a week to add it to our page. There's 2 more murals to check out, and their addresses are below.
Here's the north Side mural with the middle generation. I just wanted to point out one thing here. So I brought in a couple apprentices for this project. One is a university-trained student, one is a self-taught artist. This is their first big wall experience. It's really hard to get permission to paint big walls. You're free to paint them illegally, which is also a lot of fun. But wouldn't recommend that to students. And so we'd work, this one took us about 7 days. We put in about a half day's work, and then our lunch break is just talks around how to make it as a creative business. And so I cover topics such as contracts, business structures, banking, proposals, building a team, insurance, all the nuts and bolts of running a business like this. And then I set up the apprentices with templates for contracts and invoices and additional resources. I bring in my videographer to talk about, and photographers to talk about working and sustaining themselves as creative businesses. And I just try to create like the most impactful experience for these folks, also knowing that in the future I might be tapped for other projects that are out of my scope or out of my availability. I need helping hands. I want folks to also facilitate mural camps. And so this is just me trying to pass on the craft of doing this kind of work in a way that is, I guess, valuable to them. Yeah, last slide, please. Here's my contact info. Have paint, will travel. I notice a lot of wall space in this place. If you know somebody that knows somebody, feel free to contact me and we can take care of that.
I just had two quick questions. The first is, what's your, actually now that I'm about to say this, I realize it may be inappropriate, but I'm really curious, like what's your major funding source for these kinds of community projects?
It's a mix. Sometimes for the mural camps, I'm tapping youth organizations that I've built relationships with, and they put in the funding. It's usually a collaborative effort to cover the cost. So there's 2 or 3 or 4 organizations kind of pooling funding together. I'm always applying for grants. Commission murals are, usually private businesses, and then just RFPs, RFQs, just going after everything I can. Yeah, so it's a mix right now.
And then I'm new to the art world, and it seems like so much of it is thought of as a solitary practice, that artists work alone. And so what is it about your background or your history or your personality? Like what for you makes this so collaborative and community-based rather than solitary?
I met a social worker, someone who was studying social work in 2001, and I was really intrigued with how they did that work. 9/11 happened, and I'm an artist. I was visiting Parsons and going to just trying to figure out where to go. 9/11 happened, and all of a sudden, me making art in a studio felt too selfish. And so I got into art education, trying to figure out how do I kind of practice this thing. It's innate, and I have been doing this stuff without even school for a while. How do I practice that and then make some sort of impact? And I thought art education was the way, and it was decent. I'm really glad I did that. But I also kept getting fired because arts funding is always getting cut, or arts programming is always getting cut from public school. But I kind of saw the classroom as being the potential medium, and whatever we're doing in this classroom and however it leaves the classroom, how cool is that? What is this lesson going to transform into? So I think from that early experience, I've just been drawn to more community-minded art making.
My biggest question sketch to a sketch? Are you taking the time to go up there and actually sketch everything and then everybody's painting it? And how on earth what do you sketch with?
Yeah, so in the mural world, we call it a doodle grid. It's basically we put a grid on the wall, and that's our big version, and then we have a small version that we're looking at. And so when we see parts of the grid, we know that the eyeball should go right here on this part of the grid. So it's just having a smaller version and then painting it larger. And then I guess like what's interesting is larger stuff sometimes is easier to paint. So it's less detail, and an eyeball is suddenly the size of your head, you know.
We can take
One more question.
I had sort of two, but how long does this do these murals last on brick? And is there sort of a mural community in the country?
I think murals as a whole of this country is seeing a rise in it, maybe the past 15, 20 years. It's kind of regionally specific. There's a lot of excitement around it right now, which is awesome. And then in terms of preservation, it just a lot of it depends on the prep work that you do. If you're using high quality materials, priming. Also, a lot of it depends on the direction that the wall is facing. If it's getting sun all day, then it's going to fade a lot sooner. But there's also products that you can use there's sealants you can use to help protect against the elements, and sun being kind of the main element that you're trying to protect from. But yeah, they can last for a long time. I've been doing this for 6 years, and some of the murals we've installed are still as vibrant as day one, but a lot of it depends on the preparation and then sealing towards the end.